Welcome to Creating Success in the Mess, where we talk about just that, creating success in the mess of this thing we call life.
We're your hosts, Corey and Whitney, a husband and wife team that does life and business together.
In this podcast, we share our struggles and funny moments as we have journeyed growing our family, our faith, and businesses.
We share inspiration, motivation, and practical tips and tricks to help you build yourself and a life you love.
We invite you to join us every week on the podcast, and we can't wait to create success in the mess together. Okay, welcome to this week's episode. I'm so excited that you're back here with us again this week, Leslie. I enjoyed our last episode, and everybody else I know enjoyed it. It was one of the top ranked episodes that we had. So the conversation with you was amazing. I knew it. And then I knew everybody else was going to know it. So I'm so excited that you're back here again this week. And let's just, how are you doing? How is life treating you?
Oh, well, first, I'm very happy to be back. And thank you so much. How's life treating me? I am so tempted to say good because I feel like when someone asks you how you are, you say good. But in all honesty, I'm kind of a hot mess, to be honest with you. No. I feel so scatterbrained and I'm forgetting stuff and I'm busy, but I'm not busy. I don't even know. I don't know.
No, I totally relate to that. It's just a lot of chaos going on, it feels like. Did you guys get to see the eclipse?
We did. So we were 94% in totality. And so it was a pretty good view. Me and my neighbor, we got our girls off early from school, let them do their homework, and then we watched it. They were a little disappointed because it didn't get very dark. And we had been, our school was writing notes because it was during dismissal, prepare for it to be dark, stand right in front of the bus stop and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't, but it was still fun to see. A lot of pressure, though. I think that's why I'm a little scatterbrained. There were people making these beautiful Pinterest, snacks that were the moon and the sun. And then, there was one, it was the different stages of the solar eclipse and just all, charcuterie boards, I can never pronounce that, based on the solar eclipse and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I need to do that. And then I was like, wait a second, I can't even keep up with the vacuuming. How am I going to make special treats?
Yeah.
So I gave the girls, I gave the girls popsicles. I said, these are solar eclipse popsicles. And they were like, really? And they opened them up and it was just, a fudgesicle. And they were like, I don't get it. And I said, well, I'm giving you a popsicle during the solar eclipse. There you go.
I love that. I love it. No, we kind of had the same experience. We were in 98% totality and we, the same thing, all the whole it's going to get dark type of you talk. And our schools here were out and the emergency management was talking about getting gas and, all these things because of all these travelers in our area. And so, well, for me, to be honest, I didn't really care. I could have cared less. I'm into Mercury retrograde and the movements and this, the alignment and all of that and how that affects us. I'm into that, but going out and looking at it, it wasn't thrilling me. But my kids and then Corey, of course, my husband was for sure into it. And so afterwards, they were really disappointed because we were told it was going to be night,
Yes.
That's what it was built up to be. And it was not night. It looked like, in all honesty, the days we have tornadoes, our severe weather days get darker than that. So, it was kind of and I hear what you're saying about the pressure. I mean, it was everywhere. And I can't count the number of blogs and stories and people that were you need to make this memorable for your kids. And and it was that pressure of having to make it be something. And then I saw all of those pizzas and, the whole snack tray and all of that for what? It just, to me, it just was to make you, feel bad, I guess, about performing at such a high level. And just like you said, like, I'm trying to like run a business and keep up with vacuuming. Like, I can't sit here and like make all this like pretty, Pinterest pretty stuff.
And you know what? In actuality, I don't even think my kids would have touched that stuff. I think they would have gone straight to the popsicles.
Right. Yeah.
I felt, I'm going to be honest, I felt a little bit like a failure because it wasn't just seeing it on Pinterest, getting ideas on Pinterest, but it was, seeing what other people were doing on Facebook and so, just social media in general. And it kind of like, I got to a point where I was like, close it down, don't look at it. Mm-hmm. Because I recognized that feeling of, I don't know if it's a failure or not being good enough, but I talk a lot, especially to my daughter, about this is a curated viewing, what you're seeing here on social media. People are putting the best stuff up. They're not putting up, for the most part, something sad or something that they failed at. And so you have to remember that, like, your life isn't awful and theirs isn't fantastic. There's a lot that goes into that. And I found myself having to remind myself of that just for the pressure of that day. If that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think that like, Pinterest is there and it has a lot of pretty things, and social media is there and, people share their highlight reels. And for us, like a lot of times, I think that we are kind of just conditioned to be looking at all the pretty things in the highlight reels and feeling like we have to live up to that standard. Right. And even regardless of if it like feels good to us or is even something we really want to do, like, I would never want to sit there and make a pretty little eclipse tray of snacks. Like, that's just not like something that I would enjoy doing. Yeah. And so like you look at that stuff and it is like, there's this pressure to perform. But I think, honestly, we put that on ourselves to, to like 100%. Present a picture pretty image or to live up to the expectations and the standards that other people think. And in reality, I don't think that like Pinterest was designed for us to go and look at and feel like failures. I think it was intention was for inspiration, but our perfect selves, like want to think that we need to make it look as pretty as that or, do all that stuff. And I think like it just, we're creating that pressure ourselves.
Well, I think I 100% agree. And what I'm reminded of is that phrase, which is probably something that was around, I don't think our parents, maybe our grandparents, but keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes.
You see your neighbor with a new lawnmower and then you want a new lawnmower. You see your neighbor with the newest car and then you want the new car because they didn't have social media. But now it's really in our face, like so much more because we can just scroll and see what the whole town is doing or your whole high school class is doing. And so, but I do agree, we put that pressure on ourselves. And I don't know, when does that start? I mean, are we born that way? Is it what our parents did? Is it how we grew up? Like, where does that come from? I don't really know the answer, but I do know it's not healthy.
No, it's not healthy. And I do think, just like you said, like our grandparents, like, keeping up with the Joneses, like you put your Sunday best on, right? And you go to church, like you keep the family, drama inside the house. Like you don't tell people. I mean, I think these are just ways that our ancestors, like developed and kind of lived by at some point in time. And then it just kind of kept passing down to us. And then that's kind of, what we've picked up and then what we've carried on. I think like we don't have to like, we don't really have to act like we are, Pinterest perfect or, have this curated life. And in fact, in all reality, like, I don't think we're expected to or supposed to, because I feel like the point of connection with people is in the messy, is in the real, is in the raw. Yeah. And so like when we are living so curated and perfect, and we're putting all this pressure on ourselves to keep doing, you know, what we were taught or what we were told or what they did, you know, generations before, we're not showing up as us. And so what, you know, that doesn't feel good to us, but then also like, what are we giving to others? You know, like what are we not sharing with others? Like, how are we not helping them through our mess?
I totally agree. And I think I might have mentioned this the last time I was on, that when I start talking about things that I've gone through, things that are tough, you know, I hear other people open up to me that they've gone through that, or their relative or whatnot. And I feel better about having gone through something hard, and I feel better because I feel like I'm helping someone else be able to talk about it.
Right.
You know, because it can be very lonely, like depending upon what you're going through, but like it can be really lonely if you're not telling your friends what's really going on in your life. And I think, how do you even know that you guys have anything in common, right? I mean,
Exactly.
are you friends? Because you're not talking about your real life.
Yeah,
So,
that is so true. That is so true. Like the friendships and the relationships that you have whenever you're only showing up like in your curated form, are they really even, you know, genuine? Like what foundation is that built on? That is such a good point.
Yeah. It's scary though. That part really scares me because I'm a person who has less friends, but I'm closer with those individuals. You know, and I like having a smaller but a tighter bond.
Right.
And I sit here and I'm like, okay, am I doing this with anyone this Sunday best? You know, am I guilty of that? Because one, I want to be authentic, and two, like I want to make sure that these friendships that I have, that they are as real as they feel. You know, and then also I start thinking about, and this is just how my mind works, what are we showing our kids?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, we essentially are, you know, this infiltrates every area of our life, you know, not just like us looking at Pinterest or, you know, on social media and then feeling bad ourselves, you know, like this, we do this in our work life or in our businesses. And then our kids watch this, you know, like how many times have you heard, you know, my mom was on the phone and it was like, she hung up and it was like a totally different person, you know, when she was talking to them, or when he was, you know, whatever. But then we get home and it's like a totally different person, and they recognize that and they see that. And I think that's how we're passing down that, you know, okay, be curated here and be perfect here and be fake here. This is your like public persona.
Yeah.
And then we go home and this is, you know, not. And they totally pick that up.
Right. Yeah. And so it's back to what we were talking about before. How do we break that cycle? Because they're not just learning this from us by seeing it once or twice. They're learning this and they're seeing others do it too.
Right.
So I think we all really need to, you know, take a few moments to examine ourselves and see, you know, who are we serving here? I remember I was listening to a recent podcast that you and Corey did, and you know, I liked that phrase that he was using, you know, who are you serving? Because I think the answer is no one in this scenario.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's really important, is to think like who you're serving, you know, like we're given like, you know, experiences and gifts and talents. And I think we're here to use those, you know, to serve others and to help others. And I think sometimes like we get, you know, like we're talking about, stuck behind what we think others like view us as. And I was recently listening to somebody and she described it as the shitty committee in your head. And so like, instead of showing up like yourself, it starts talking and it's like, if you are vulnerable or if you say that, then they might think blah, 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 blah. Because the whole purpose of our mind and our body is to keep us safe and alive and functioning. Like its biological purpose is to keep us functioning. And so that's what it automatically is going to watch out for all the time. And I think that that's what happens. I think when we look at Pinterest or, whatever, and we start comparing ourselves or at the point of feeling pressure, I think that's when that shitty committee is starting to talk up there. And so at that point, once we start hearing, that, or we start feeling, the pressure, kind of like you said in the beginning, like, I just got to shut all this down,
absolutely.
Like you're actually going to be safe and you're actually going to be okay if you just share the real you, if you just share your real experience, if you just own the fact that, like, I can't make those pretty Pinterest eclipse like stuff. Like, I'm not even interested in it,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think at that point, I think when we start integrating that into like little bits in our work life and our personal life and all that, I think then we'll just kind of, it'll be like a kind of more of a snowball effect, and we'll just start showing up more genuine and less, pressured, carrying the bags of all of it that we've been handed.
No, I agree. But I think where the real success is going to be is then, are you surrounded by others that are doing the same?
Yes.
And if you're not, do you need to make any changes?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you don't want to be the only one who's genuine and authentic. That's nice for your friends, but you need that back from them also.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And if you are, if you're surrounded by a group of people that wants to live this Sunday best curated, lifestyle, then when you go into that scenario, that situation in that environment, you're going to feel that pressure. I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Well, I love is, we had this lovely older couple that was our neighbors when we moved here 4 years ago. They were so sweet and they loved my daughter. They would go on walks together. She would just hang out and talk to them. And when they moved, I was devastated. And then this woman and her daughter moved in, and I've told her this. I said, I did not want to like you because I really was sad when the other people moved out. But she has quickly become such a close friend because she's like me. She's like, I cannot do that. I don't have time for that. I would rather spend time with my daughter than worry about how clean my house is, stuff like that. That really is meaningful. And actually, bringing up the cleaning house thing, I remember so many times not agreeing to a play date because my house was a mess, right? And I finally started saying that's terrible because I'm missing out. My daughter's missing out. And so I made this pact with my one friend. Our daughters were really close. I made this pact like, you do not need to clean your house for me. I'm not going to clean my house for you, or we will never have a play date. And I'm not going to apologize for how my house looks when you walk in. I don't want you to do the same thing. This is life, and this is what life looks like. Right. So let's just make the play date and have a great time and not worry about it.
Yeah. I love how you said, and I'm not going to apologize for. I love that because there is no apology needed. It is just you and you showing up in your true authentic self, and there's no apology needed. Nope. We don't have to walk around and apologize for being us. If we all do, it'll make us feel better, and then our hot mess mom life be easier, less hot messy, I guess. And then like our relationships out in the world and our business and stuff, I think it'll all just get easier. And I do kind of think that the mood and the acceptance around showing up genuine as your true self, I do think that has kind of shifted some from the way that it used to be. I think there are more people that are trying to do that to a degree. And I think like if we can just keep, pushing this message and leading by example,
yes, I think that's a big one.
I think it would be like so beneficial to, the world, but more importantly, our kids and our grandkids. Like, I don't want my kids walking around living like they have to cover themselves up or hide, parts of themselves or their opinions or, their beliefs or whatever.
I feel like, and I'm sure there's going to be some people who disagree with me on this one. I feel like we talk so much about climate change and how that's going to affect our kids and our grandkids. I think this is just as important. I really do. Because all this pressure, it does cause your body to act in certain ways. Like holding all this stuff in, it's not healthy. And you will, I mean, I don't know how other people's bodies would react, but for me, I get migraines. And I know if I'm like pushing all that in and giving myself all this pressure and that, I'm going to have a headache and it's going to ruin my day, whether I was going to be authentic or not. So I think we have to remember, like, what is this doing to our bodies?
Absolutely. I think like it's just such an important topic. And I think that we can go so deep with it. And I think that it is exactly what you said. I think it has to be talked about as much as like the climate change and, you know, everything else, because the more that we talk about it and the more that we do, the healthier we are. And then the healthier, you know, that we're teaching our kids to be from the beginning. And so that they don't have to carry the bags as long as we do, you know? And I totally agree. I think that like it is important for them to recognize that and to learn that so that they don't get the migraines or the tension in the, you know, shoulders and the back. And yes,
absolutely.
I think this was a really good topic. And I think that there's so many of us that struggle with this. And I think it's going to keep coming up in our conversations, to be honest with you, because I think that it infiltrates everything. And so I would just offer, like, one thing that we do in my house is we kind of like put it in a framework of like, well, who said, you know? So like we'll question things whenever I start feeling the pressure of, you know, like being perfect or I should be doing this. Whenever I start shooting on myself, then I stop and I think, well, who said we can't have a snack right now at 4:00 because dinner's at 5? And then it's like, I mean, I don't know. My mom said that. And then it's like, you know, well, why, you know? And then, well, who said I can't tell people that like I'm struggling today? Like, who said I have to show up and say I'm good? So that is my tip that I would offer that I'm using to like work through this. And by no means am I like there or perfect. Like this shows up all day long. But this is what I use. And then I'm really working on teaching my kids, whenever you find yourself whenever the should shows up, then stop and ask, well, who said?
Whitney, that is so great. I think we'll definitely start doing that in my house. Cause you're right. Like, did our parents say we couldn't do that? You know, like I know you and I joke about making up the bed, right?
Right.
And my mom was big on making up the bed. And then when I was a grown up, I was finally like, yes, I don't have to make up the bed. And now I'm with someone who likes the bed made up. So I do it for him. But previously it's like, who said? Well, your mom said. Your mom said make up your bed, right?
Right. And then what happens if I don't? You know?
Right. In a few hours, I'm going to be back in that bed.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So I hope that, you know, that we really kind of like showed up authentic and vulnerable here in talking about this. We both deal with this all the time. I think it's safe to say everybody deals with this all day, every day. And then I hope that you feel encouraged that you're not alone. We both here are supporting you to show up authentic and genuine, and to find your circle of friends or your people where you feel like you can be that and you feel like you receive that, because that is really important in, you know, growing your ability to do this. And then also, like, whenever should shows up, start asking and questioning, well, who said that?
Yep. Perfect tip. Perfect. We'll have to talk about this some more for sure. I think there's definitely some offshoot topics, you know, from this that we could talk about that maybe could be helpful and that could help keep encouraging people to go along this path and be authentic.
Thank you so much for being here and talking about this with me again this week on the podcast. And then I know that you'll be back with some more good, juicy topics.
I do have a few ideas.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Corey, again, for letting me come back. And, you know, I like to say, keep his seat warm.
Yep.
But yeah, no, this has been great. And it helps me too, to talk about this stuff, because then I'm putting myself, I need to do what I say.
Right. I think it's so important to talk about it and then voice it. And then it like keeps you kind of accountable, you know, like once it comes out of your mouth, then it's, you know, in a safe place now to start just continuing changing your behavior, you know, changing your thoughts and changing your patterns. That is the super hard part. And so I think the more that we talk about it in an environment like this with support and with other people, it makes that change easier.
Absolutely. Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening. We know that we all get busy trying to do life, and our hope is that we can find ways to implement time and space to create a life we love living every day on our terms, right in the middle of all the messes of life.
We hope that you've been inspired and our conversation has helped you in some way, and it would be so amazing if you share this conversation with somebody that you think would really benefit from hearing it. You can text someone the link, or you can share it via email or on your social media pages. And please, we would love for you to leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because it helps us so much. The more reviews we have, the more people that will find our show, and our ultimate goal is for everyone to feel inspired, to find ways to create their own success right in the middle of all the mess. And no, they are not alone in doing so.
And finally, we'd love for you to join our weekly email list so that we can connect on a deeper level and you can always be in the know of our new release events and opportunities.